If you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Law by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the Masquerade. In this episode, we shall discuss the Abominations, Garou and Fera cursed with vampirism. We shall explore their origins, motives, and what sort of cultures these Kindred-Lupine live. You look vexed, child. Is there something on your mind, or are you truly just nervous? Is it truly that suspect for us to take a nightly stroll through the woods tonight? Are you expecting some sort of surprise? Well, I hate to disappoint that racing heart of yours, neonate, but there is nothing of the sort planned for you. Just you, me, the many dark deciduous trees, and the lupine that gather monthly as part of their ceremonial meetings. You needn't worry. You're safe with me. Most of our ilk fear the lupine for good reason. If I have to explain any of that to you, you are truly a lost cause. The lupine hate us, which is hardly a secret to us, but what is not so widely known, and in some spaces accepted, is the existence of werewolf vampires, true abominations to both canite and lupine alike. And that is not me being deliberately horrible. It is the lupine too. No, in this context. Abominations are the result of a lupine or Garou, if we use their word for it, or indeed any other shapeshifter of Gaia, who is embraced by a vampire. There are other names for them, such as the Undying Children, the Damned Ura, the Vicaculus, the Pale Ones, and Luna's Demons, but you will simply hear them as Abominations whenever you hear those speak of them. They serve as the fearful antagonists for many werewolf tales, aimed at children and adults alike, and I am more than certain that they, for as few as they are the living boogeymen for a couple of domains out there, for they are as fearsome as you may suspect. They have the benefits of vampires that embrace them, by which I mean they can wield the disciplines of their parent clan, though you'll find that most, if not all, would consider themselves cative or cative, as their sires seldom stay with them. They can use their vitae to rouse the senses and physical stature for increased strength, charm and wit as you and I can, and it can be used to repair their dead flesh, losing their supernatural regenerative properties. They have the use of their lupine magics, the appropriate named gifts, and whatever rites their spirits and patrons, or totems depending on who you inquire, has taught them. The abominations can also continue shifting between their various wolf and human forms. I'm aware of at least 10 kindred in my lifetime that have been tempted to claim a pet lupine to parade at Elysium, and some of those were more than happy to try and enslave it for their own doings, which is often the case for the few abominations that exist out there. No doubt there have been some Garou who fear death, and wish to seek out a kindred to grant them the curse of immortality, but those are fewer still. The Garou are said to be the purest form of primal life on the planet, and vampires are the living death. For a lupine to become like us is to disconnect themselves from the soul of the world, their reason for living. They are, in all senses of the word, abominations, and are creatures that literally should not be. To say that it is a dishonorable path is a huge understatement of the word. The most common cause of death for an abomination is suicide, no longer able to exist without the feeling of their Gaia in their soul, whatever that may well be for them, and those that do exist are, more often than not, bound to their sire, and for most, that is not a life worth living. You may give me some of those strange looks, child, but I have seen some of the most recent submissive neonates get aroused at the thought of such blood-stained love, pure immature wastes of skin. But I digress. Those that are free live in solitude, not accepted into whatever society takes them, be it vampiric or lupine, though I have heard once of 2 tribes that are known to accept abominations. One of these are called the Bone Gnawers, and another called the Black Spiral Dancers, but from my understanding, this breed of lupine associate themselves with the Sabbat, so would probably choose from that particular stock of crazed canites. I do believe I mentioned once that the Taint have used abominations in their operations before, but this is a more covert thing rather than an open warfare strategy tactic, unlike the other hand, the puppeteer. So, the abomination life is a solitary one, entrenched in a unique pit of hopeless desperation and depression, something that I believe they, the Lupines, call the Harano, although there is some hope. That is, if you are the sort to believe in the near-mythical state of Golconda. It is said that an abomination that achieves this Golconda can choose the release of death or become a full Garou once more, feeling the blessings of being one of Gaia's children once more. And to make their lives all that more lonely, they cannot embrace. Their vitae's fault makes them infertile. The social and spiritual shame is not all an abomination is forced to endure. As a reminder, they are a vampire, so all those weaknesses and unique traits one would assign to a canine do exist. An abomination cannot acquire more of these gifts and rights from other spirits, only those with more baneful and antagonistic properties, you can say. Although, if a Garou takes pity on an abomination, they can teach them said rights and gifts. Similarly, the embraced Lupine can no longer use their spiritual items known as fetishes and claves, unless they have been enchanted by the not-so-pleasant spirits I alluded to moments ago. The overall connection to this spirit world is severed and continue to lose greater connection if they act out against their kin, regardless of tribe or intention. Lupine can frenzy similar to us, and even such actions in blind rage can harm them spiritually. There is also the very simple fact that most shapeshifters pertaining to Gaia cannot undergo the embrace. Lupines are said to be allergic to our vitae, and an attempt at the embrace kills their either quiet or violent agonizing Lupine. The same cannot be said for the other shapeshifters, though my knowledge of those is understandably lacking even for a kindred of my particular mental talents. Thank you. I know that the Raven shifters expire the following morning, for their spirits are aligned with the sun rather than the moon. The shark shifters, I heard, spend their undead existence in a violent frenzy, consuming blood from all those around them, starting with the richest blood of them all, that of the Canaanites. And supposedly, the fox shifters of Japan and China explode in a ball of fire and ash. Of course, I have not witnessed any of these things myself, so you may conduct your own research if you so wish. Something that you may find out on said studies and possible travels is that the abominations follow something known as the hierarchy of worm Taint, the worm being some omnipotent thing that the Garou spend their existence fighting, or something like that. A Celestine of entropy and decay, that sort of thing. No, I don't expect you to understand that, and I'm merely providing you context, you impatient swine! The abominations like the Garou do not attempt to emulate humanity, only to the point of not sticking out like a sore thumb, but the unnatural urban world throws them through a loop, shall we say. The noises, smells, and the other unpleasant toxins of the world you've probably grown accustomed to is not so pleasant for their sensitive doggy noses. But now as a vampire, they have to find a way of balancing the paradoxical element of their souls, lest they succumb to wasau or whatever the Garou word for that would be, i.e. to become a wight with far too much fur and muscle. So they've acquired their own path of enlightenment, so to speak, the previously dubbed hierarchy of worm Taint. It is linked to the development of something called ego in these creatures post-embrace, symbolizing the extent of their newfound consciousness, fragmented and liberated from their previous pack mentality. The ego signifies the vampire Garou's divergence from its kin, indicating its ability to resist the unnatural primal instincts, the very impulses that beckon the abomination's spirit towards its antagonistic worm. When abomination succumbs to frenzy, it jeopardizes its ego, potentially descending into servitude under the worm. If such a state, it loses control, violating its own principles and the code of the Garou. As the abomination's ego diminishes, the worm consumes much of its soul. However, frenzy is not the sole path to this transgression. The abomination can make such choices autonomously. This blend of, dare say, mechanical and spiritual ego also determines the duration of the Abomination's slumber during daylight, akin to how some canines, for want of a better analogy, are deeper sleeper than others. Abominations are truly pitiable breeds of supernatural. They are despised by both the Lupine and the Kindred, relegated to a life of solitude and despair. They possess the powers of both their vampiric and Lupine heritages, but are denied the comfort of community and kinship from both. They are the creatures that should not exist, abominations in every sense of the word. Even the most wretched of neonates can find perverse delight in the thought of such tainted love. But for the Abomination, they understand that their curse is theirs and theirs alone, something that Cain himself failed to understand, and while something particularly specific and rare circumstances can warrant the Abomination some sprinkle of hope, they are condemned to a life of sorrow and isolation, forever shunned by both the living and the undead and the earth that blessed them. Now then, I can see that has definitely shaken you up quite enough, neonate. Let me escort you back to my manor home whilst you tell me what exactly you conversed with this Zacharias Zimri. To be kept updated, follow the Law by Night VTM Instagram and Blue Sky pages to find out when we upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.